was like, what's the book we chose or I chose this month? Dun dun dun. Empire of the Vampire. Look at the cover. My little boy, he loves everything that's dark and scary. And he's like, ooh. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. You can figure that out.
So he constantly says, "Oh, he's spooky. He loves spooky things," and it's hilarious. And by the way, I mean he's young. We're not talking like 6, 8, 10. No, 3.
Yeah, he's 3. He loves all the spooky skeleton things. I don't know. I'm gonna have to watch out for that little boy.
It's cute though.
So this is by Jay Kristoff. Jay Kristoff is a Australian born, and he writes fantasy and science fiction. What's interesting about him is that he has a background in creative arts, and they kind of describe his work as familial and has friendships, love, loss, and betrayal. But when you go onto his introduction about himself, he actually describes himself as not believing in happy endings. So just keep that in mind as we discuss this book. Also, when I wrote my little description of it, I try to come up with like the words that really like describe the book into a couple of like themes. Like, this one I thought of it as a dark, epic, medieval fantasy. So if you have those really important words, you're going to know what you're getting into. So think dark, epic, medieval fantasy. So I wanted to get your take. What do you think they should know?
Well, before you even wrote the review, you and I were like checking in with each other. And I was like, Jessica, this is a dark fantasy.
Are you okay?
Like I kept saying, like, this is dark. Like I mean, I won't lie to you. This is not a book that I read from cover to end. I actually read about 25%. And then I read the last like 50 pages. And you guys, I know it's like blasphemous almost to say that, but it was just too dark for me. And it had nothing to do with his writing, right? His writing was captivating. It was very well done. And it's a very different style too, like of storytelling, because he's telling the story in live to someone who's basically interviewing him, right? And it's very interesting to have that because it's broken time periods where like sometimes he doesn't like what he's talking about. It's so dark. He's like, I'm done with that story right now. We're gonna fast forward. We're gonna talk about something else.
Yeah, it's done in a setting as if you were talking to him and then you're getting flashbacks. So you flash back to his beginning, then suddenly you flash back to when he makes it to basically like school. He meets, he goes on these adventures. And so you kind of get these piecemeal like experiences of flashback, to his past.
Oh, we actually should probably backtrack.
What?
It does say like Empire of the Vampire, right? So obviously this is a story around vampires, and this guy, he is half a vampire, half human, and he's the last of his kind. And that's the reason why he's being interviewed at this point. So that's what gives you an idea. My sister mentioned, like, this guy, this author, does not believe in happy endings, and let me tell you, that is like probably that doesn't even succinctly describe it. It's worse than that. Yeah, it's bleak. Yeah, it's bleak.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about the system too, because the author has an amazing plot line. It's very detailed. It obviously was thought out. What's your take on fantasies or just books in general, where there's a magic system that is very strict and stringent with rules? Or what is your take on fantasies that are more lenient and or subtle?
I think that has a lot to do with like how you set it up, right? Because there's some whimsical type fantasies that I've read that are a little bit more loose with their rules and regulations and stuff and laws. And I'm not opposed to it, right? Because I feel like it's supposed to be a light and fluffy piece, and it's not about trying to create this amazing universe, right? Like Brandon Sanderson writes and he creates a cosmere, right? Is what he's called it. This universe. And he has in that universe, things have to follow certain things. But some of the more lighter fantasies that I read that are more like standalones, it doesn't make any sense to create these huge in-depth laws, right? Because I think it would distract from the story, if that makes any sense.
I think too,
Yeah.
it matters on what you're trying to portray as an author.
Yeah.
Like when I said this is an epic fantasy or something that says epic, it's going to be put in a huge different category bracket to me.
Yes.
You're going to be in Brandon Sanderson, you're going to be in these huge, like big series books. I'm
Yeah.
going to expect a lot out of you. And yeah, so epic
And they
to
have
me is
more-
very serious.
And like you were saying,
Like-
epic means he's creating religions. He's
Yeah.
creating, and that's
Society, the
huge,
culture.
huge part of this book is the society
Yeah.
and the religious aspects. That actually was really intriguing to me, and that's one reason why I was like, wow, he's a good author. He writes extremely well.
Yeah, I was very impressed with his style.
Same.
I probably read 90 or 85% of it. I did start to skip a little bit because it was a little too dragging on with the like constant violence and this depression, but I really wanted to get a sense of the character and I figure out, you know, at the end what is really happening. Because it kind of the ending, I'm not going to tell you the ending, but it kind of ends with like not enough. Like
It doesn't end.
It
with,
doesn't
it doesn't
end
end with an
well.
end. Okay, guys.
Yeah,
It is an epic fantasy, which means there will be another book.
Which
So if you want the story to be, you know, concluded, it won't be.
I don't know if it's out yet, but I think the second book
think it's
is
supposed to come out
soon, if not now.
Yeah.
So,
So in general, do you have to have extremely happy stories, or do you mind it being a little bleak, but then still giving you like at least a satisfying ending? You know what I mean?
I like to add one of these into my reading list because my bias is happy endings, right? Because I love like a conclusion and a happy ending because I don't want bleak. If I want bleak, I'll go turn on the news. But I do appreciate the non-happy endings or like the sweet bitter endings. I sporadically put them in just so that I kind of get a low or like really kind of can feel something and then get out of that. Like I don't want to be stuck there.
Yeah.
And that's what I think kind of why the book was this little bit of a struggle for me because I was like, oh, I'm a little stuck in this. And it's longer.
I think it's too much bleakness. Like I know that life can be tough, but like it's like those soap operas, right? Where everything always goes wrong. Like he's in a coma. This is happening now. It's just always so bleak. And you're like, okay, can there be anything happy?
This is why I only gave it a 4 out of 5. I was so close to making it a 5.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it because of my own sense of like, oh, I drug my feet. It's a 4. Yeah. And that's just
I gave it a 4 and I didn't even read the whole book.
Yeah.
But it's just because I can appreciate how well the author did.
Well,
But the reason why I asked you that question about whether you could have like bleakness, so I guess, in some of the story is one of my favorite authors is actually Charles Dickens. Like, and if you think about some of his classic stories, like, you know, Christmas Carol, he doesn't get to go back, guys, right? He doesn't get to go back and fix what he's done wrong and have the happily ever after. But he gets to redeem himself, right? Same thing with like Little Dorrit. There's just so many bleak things that happen, or even one that's called Bleak House, right?
I feel like that was one of your more favorite ones.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, they're sad stories, but what I like about Charles Dickens is you still get some happiness, and people always get what they deserve in the very end. And I am actually very a firm believer in that. And sometimes that means not necessarily even in this life, right? It could actually be in the next, going a little religious on you. But I just
Fits with the book.
yeah,
Here.
especially with his book, right?
Yeah.
About religion.
But I wanted to just show. I don't know what it is, but recently I've noticed that there are a lot of authors that are throwing in these artwork
Mhm.
inserts. And even people that are looking for inserts that you can buy and put into your favorite
Yeah.
books. And some of the things they do online is just absolutely
Incredible.
Yeah. So, you know, while the front is cool, I wanted to get your idea and your take because when you look inside,
Show
they're
it. Show the
amazing.
artwork.
It's amazing, guys. And it's not just one in here.
Yeah, there's
There are
several.
plenty of these pictures that are amazing. Like, I don't know what sort of material the author is using, but he actually has art in his background. So that's why I think that that's in it, because I'm sure that he does it himself. So yeah, what is your take on the adding in? I've even seen like people that have like drawn doodles in like their books. What's your take on that?
I've always liked it. Even I've even seen somewhere it's small little pictures that they've done at the start of a chapter, right? It says
Mhm.
chapter 6, but they'll have like an intricate design showing what chapter 6 is.
Mhm.
And after you end up reading, after you end up and sorry, backing track. After you finish reading chapter 6, you understand why that was a picture for the symbol and stuff, because it usually ties into what you're about to read. I think it doesn't distract. I think it adds. And I think, especially when maybe you're just having a hard time imagining, or what you're seeing in your head, right? When you're reading this, you're like, I think this is what I'm seeing. But then to be able to like actually reference something that the author this is really what I meant it to look like.
And
That's pretty
it's
cool.
strategic too, because he'll give you the description, and then you turn the page,
Yep.
and then you see it.
Then you get to see it.
I like that a lot, because that helps me go like, oh, look at like
Same.
kind of solidifies the imagery in my mind about this experience. So
Yeah, one book I read earlier this year was Trash of the Emerald Sea, and
Mhm.
same thing. Brandon Sanderson got, obviously artwork
Illustrated.
done by somebody else.
Mhm.
But it was so cool to see that inside the book, and it was actually even in the ebook version. So like as you're reading the ebook, you still got to see those images. So
One
it's
last
fun.
comment before we end.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to listen to it, or was it a book?
Oh yeah, no, for me it was strictly a book. I didn't get to listen to. Oh no, backwards. Sorry. I was listening to it 25, and that's one reason why I got like 25% through. The person who did the audiobook was fantastic.
That's what I was going to say.
5 out of
Amazing.
5
So
on
his
that
name
guy.
is
Like,
Damian Lynch. His voice is amazing. He actually gave me goosebumps at some points, and hearing the names in French, so cool.
Yeah.
I was so happy to hear it, because I've heard a little French, but I mean, there's French names throughout this whole book, and a lot of like the places all French, and I did stumble over the pronunciation in my mind, but to hear someone else, because I switched,
Yeah.
I have the book, but I wanted to also listen to it because that's easier sometimes for me when the books are long. Oh my goodness. So highly recommended as
Yes.
a narration.
Agreed.
Yeah. And then I kind of want to go look and see what other things
What other things he's done?
was Damian Lynch. So kudos to him. And even though the book is hard and dark, I kind of would recommend it. As long as you don't, you do have to get through some of the violence. So
Not
there
for
are
the faint of
triggers.
heart.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And all sorts of triggers. Anything that
Yeah.
you think you might be a trigger is a trigger in this.
Yep.
Like, from drug use to
Yeah, drug
Yeah.
use is a
From-
big deal throughout this whole series.
Yeah.
So beware.
but it was good. So
Yes.
I mean, I'm kind of sad that I maybe am a little bit weak when it comes to reading that kind of stuff. But
It's personally not a weakness for me for the substance abuse. So I just kind of like,
oh yeah, no,
look at
not the substance
consequences,
abuse. I just meant the bleakness,
the violence,
right?
yeah. So beware.
Even the violence didn't bother me too much. It was just
No, you didn't read all of it.
That's true. I didn't.
Oh, there's quite a bit. Anyway, hope this is good tips and a good review. So
Yeah.
thanks.
Join us for our next one.
Bye.